Well, I am back. This topic has been on my mind the past few days, and I thought it would be good to come on and maybe do a new video about this subject. I did a video years and years ago about it. I don't know if it's still up on the channel, but it was called it was something like how poly relationships can and do hurt women or something like that. Where I went into, a lot of different details about what I've observed about those relationships. My cat is, of course, giving his opinion. Darling, what do you want? I can't please you right now. He was ignoring me before I went live, of course. And then as soon as the camera is on and it's action, he has something to say, Well, anyway, I thought it would be good to come back on here and discuss this again. Oh, that's a pretty strong comment so far. My goodness. I will respond to you shortly. We'll pull it up. I don't think it's good for anyone. I hear a lot of people justify it with different language. I hear it justified in terms of so many different politics and philosophies. And really what it comes down to and what I've observed is that it has nothing to do with love. It really doesn't. And the title of it, or the label that this lifestyle falls under, is really inaccurate, because amory would imply some kind of love. And love is the thing that is lacking generally in these dynamics, because this is not how people behave when they love one another. And I think there's a big misunderstanding in our culture about what love really is. And I may do a video in the near future talking about it specifically, but one of the most important characteristics about love is that it is not self-seeking. When we love someone else, we are not self-seeking. We start to understand and put ourselves, as less important in our own minds. And I'm not saying that, you should completely disregard yourself in love. And some people do that and call that love. And it isn't either. One has to have a genuine, ability to care and love oneself to give anything to anyone else. But what I'm stating is that there's not a selfishness involved. And this kind of dynamic is inherently selfish, and it is inherently really about feeding lusts and particular tastes and gratifying our flesh over really what our spirit needs. So welcome to the video. We are live now, so I will respond to your comments. I'd love to hear, what others have to say. Sabrina Stem. My cat is going off, I'm sorry, in the background. Says it's an excuse for bisexual women to treat their female partners like second-class citizens. I mean, I definitely see what you're talking about there. I think that kind of, that's just so, that's just, avoid any situation like that. And that is just, yes, I see what you're saying, but it also is like, that's the thing about this. It's so trashy, a lot of the times. And we don't really discuss that. We don't have any kind of context, it seems, in our modern culture about how to behave with like class and dignity and respect, even, that kind of thing there, like that you mentioned, those kind of relationship dynamics where, you have women who are bisexual who, I mean, it's just it's just a mess. It's just a mess. Okay. Like that's a whole mess. And I think, there is a tendency in our culture to not be judgmental, but when it comes to your personal life, your heart, the people that you invite into your circle, into your world, and the people that you're intimate with, it's okay to be judgmental. You need to be. And the idea that we've kind of come into seems to be that it's wrong to judge that, when in reality, these are the most important relationships you need to be judging. So, a kind of statement like that you've stated is, I definitely can see, that dynamic going on a lot. But what I will say about that is, personal responsibility has to come into play as well, and sometimes lessons have to be learned a hard way, If you're going to consent to engage in a situation like that you described, and I'm not saying this about you, Sabrina, but, for anybody watching, or observing that, if somebody is consenting to engage in that sort of situation, they may need to get knocked on their heads a little bit. They may need to get their heart toyed with a bit before they're going to actually wake up and learn the lesson. And unfortunately, some people just cannot learn the lesson without doing it the hard way, So, like I said, this topic's been on my mind recently. It came up in a recent live stream. Somebody had asked me why I thought these kind of relationship dynamics are common or more popular among millennials. And I just was like, kind of giving it all out there in that stream, the reasons why I think millennials may be more susceptible to this kind of programming and propaganda. I think, for one, it's in the culture a lot. And I've seen it recently, numerous articles in the New York Times. Let me read this article. Oh, I think my phone died. Yes, it did. I had it plugged in. Okay, I saw this article in the New York Times recently about a middle-aged married mother, who it was just saying something about how she went on a sexual adventure and, embraced polyamory. And I was reading this and I was just appalled, and they have her photograph, on and display, a close-up of her face, and she's not young. And it's not that this is something that young people, or that, I'm not saying this to be ageist, but I am saying this in the sense that you would think a woman of her age and life and experience, and a woman who has children, would be a little bit more careful about her behavior, and also a little bit more grounded in her behavior, not rushing after excitement and thrills. You would think that somebody at that point in life would be kind of over the excitement of acting dumbly. I can forgive somebody in their early 20s for getting caught up in this stuff. It's kind of though somebody who's middle-aged and married with children and responsibilities, it seems, very odd and very disturbing. So, yeah, I saw that article recently. And I also know some people. I have people that I know personally right now who decided to engage in a polyamorous relationship, let's just say, and that has not gone well. Because it's not supposed to. And of course, I advised against it at the beginning, but apparently I was told that I did not advise strongly enough. So I guess in future, if this ever comes up to me, and I agree, I think in the future, if I ever hear this kind of nonsense from a friend, I'll be a lot more brutal in my judgment. I think I made it clear what I thought and that it wasn't a good idea, but I guess I could have been a bit more serious in terms of how I discussed it, at the time. But regardless, it doesn't matter what I say because it's not my life. People are going to make the choices they're going to make. You know what I mean? Like I can only advise so much. People don't always take your advice. And I think a lot of people look at me too and they think that I don't really, I don't know. I don't know what they think. Honestly, I don't know what people think about me. I do think people see me as a sage kind of person, and I do have wisdom. So I do often get sought out for advice. But, my life has not been lived perfectly either. And obviously I'm capable of mistakes, but I try to learn from them every time I make them. And when I fall, I try to fall up, Anyway, back to this, witnessing it with people I know and the way that it has destroyed their relationships. And not only that, I've seen it in the past destroy other friends and their relationships. I've seen multiple people get into these dynamics over the years. And I always wonder, what is the appeal, especially when it's couples, because it's often what I see is that it's a couple and they're not meeting whatever, they don't feel fulfilled in their relationship in some way, both parties generally. And then they think bringing in somebody else is going to help. And that is so foolish. It is so foolish because if you have a problem with somebody else, how is bringing another person into the mix going to help? It's just going to, add another distraction. If you're having a problem with somebody else, that person is who you need to be dealing with in the first place. So I've seen a number of long-term relationships disintegrate because of this. And I've seen, a lot of hurt feelings. I've seen a lot of people get jerked around. And I've seen specifically with women, a lot of women get caught up in this thinking it's radical politics. And they, really just end up selling themselves short and not really giving themselves what they actually want. Because at the end of the day, I think most people, if they generally search themselves, are not going to be having some sort of, if they think about a satisfying relationship, most people, and I'm not saying all, I have no doubt that there are some people that just, for whatever reason, are not programmed to be faithful. I do think that is a thing. And those people should try to seek out partners that are, compatible with them. But I think that the majority of people generally, when they have a fantasy in their mind of an ideal relationship, it's with one person who, they have a strong bond with. Anyway, I'm going to catch up with the chat here. Bubblelandia would like a video on defining love. And what marriage is and historical context would also be interesting. Yeah, you're right. That would be a good subject because I have been having interesting conversations with people about marriage specifically. And again, these things are also, they tie into the Christian faith as well. So I can bring some of that in here. Hi, S.A. Brady. What happens? I'm sorry, cancerous amphibian. I don't know what you're referring to. Yeah. Oh, goodness. That there is something satisfying about hearing that. I will say that, it is funny, but that is the other thing about this too. Like, there's something about it that most of the people, there's something about it that is so just disgusting, I think, as well, to me personally. But like, there's something about it that is, when you hear people are living that way or engaging like that, it kind of, for me, it makes me a bit like repulsed. It's not something that you would, I don't know. And two, I think it's really popular amongst people who don't really, this is the thing too, they don't really have, how do I put this? Kind, I don't know, I'm trying to be kind with my language. They have found someone to date them, or they found someone to be in a relationship with them, or maybe even someone to marry them. However, they are not necessarily attractive generally to most people. And this kind of dynamic makes them even less attractive. And there's something very unattractive about it anyway. I mean, the more partners you have, the more drama you have. The more drama you have, the more baggage you have. Just on a plain level. And then this doesn't even get into the impact that, sexual immorality can have on a person just personally. It can really damage a person to have multiple sexual partners that they're not connected to, or they're connected to in some sort of ambiguous way. I think for women specifically, we tend to do better when there is, love and care and commitment involved. And I think that for women is wise as well. I think the other thing about this is just our culture has become so comfortable with people devaluing themselves and others. And so this is another kind of result of that. And maybe it ties into like the hookup culture and, the kind of comfortability we have around promiscuity in this culture. I think maybe that plays into it a bit as well. So people try to come up with some kind of philosophy of behavior around it that they think is supposedly ethical. I mean, that's another thing. They call it like ethical non-monogamy. And what makes it ethical? Nothing. Nothing makes it ethical. There's literally nothing ethical about it. They think it's ethical because they've had a conversation and both have said okay. But really, if you have a conversation with someone who you are romantically involved with, and they tell you that they're okay with you sleeping with someone else, that should be a red flag. I mean, really. That's telling, if somebody said that to me, I'm going to think this person doesn't really like me. This person isn't really in love with me. And if so, if that's the case, why am I wasting time in this fake relationship. You know, that to me is what it seems. It just seems like people having numerous fake relationships at the same time. What happens in polyamory? I mean, all kinds of things happen in polyamory. People have all kinds of dynamics, you know, and sometimes I've heard this term polycule, where there's like a group of people that are all sexually available to one another, sexually and romantically available to one another, and they keep it within that group. And then I've heard of people who practice it solo, who have like a roster of people that they are, again, this is the thing, the more partners you have sexually, the more at risk you are of, you know, venereal disease, pregnancy. It isn't wise. It really isn't wise. Even if you're all in a group and you all get tested regularly. And also, like, what a pain. You know, that's the other thing about it that is so, like, what a pain to have to, you know, put yourself through all this extra stress. And also, I just wonder with these relationships as well, like, how do people even have the time for this? Like, in the modern era, really, how do you have the time to have all of these multiple relationships that are supposed to be like ethical relationships, supposedly? How do you have the time and energy to invest properly in individuals if you know, are working, trying to like run your home and manage a modern life? Like, how do you manage that? Like, really, that to me is the big wonder I have. And I honestly think a lot of the people who get involved in this have some sort of like spiritual problems, honestly, because what else could be feeding, like, what else could actually be feeding the energy, you know, it takes to actually deal with this? Because I know for me, I find relationships lovely, but they take my energy. You know, they do take energy from you. It requires energy to give to someone. Even a friendship requires your energy. You have to invest time, energy, care. You have to do things for the other person, not to mention anything else. Like, you have to consider the other person. So how are you doing this with multiple people and not feeling completely drained? Like, you have to be being led by some sort of demonic force in order to like pull yourself into such draining lifestyle. You know what I mean? It's a draining lifestyle. And S.A. Brady says they don't have time. I mean, that's generally what happens. It's like eventually you just naturally are going to find that you like some people less than others. And there's going to be a hierarchy put on those people. You're going to put certain people at the top. Other people are going to fall to the bottom. And the moment somebody more, I mean, this is the thing too. It's just like your options are always open. Your options are always open. And when I hear this come up, it's like, to me, it's just, I don't know why people consent to it as well. I think sometimes maybe it's economic issues. You know what I mean? Because I've heard situations like years ago, I went to a party at this straight couple's house. You know, they were living together. They were not married. They'd been together a number of years. And my friend kind of pulled me to the side and stated that it wasn't to the side, it wasn't at the party, it was after, but she had told me that the hostess had basically given her boyfriend an ultimatum that she would, either that their relationship was going to become an open one, meaning that they would be allowed to see other people, or she would, it was going to end. And so in that circumstance, you have to understand, like, they lived together, they no doubt shared resources, but he was not happy about it. It was kind of thrust on him. And, I thought about that, and I thought about, like, watching them together as a couple. And I kind of realized, just looking, I'd only met them like twice, this couple, but I kind of had a very different opinion about them after I'd heard that, because I saw, like, how he had been totally emasculated by that. And she seemed to be, like, so, happy, carefree, like, so she seemed to be having a great time. And it's almost like, to me, I saw her not really, she didn't care about him anymore. That's what it was. I mean, she was willing to, like, use him for his utility in the way that she had, but she seemed to have no trouble. Like, she was delighting in his misery almost. Like, to me, it just seemed like you have to be like the cruelest of the cruel to put somebody through this, somebody that you profess to care about. So it kind of bothered me. I was talking to, like I said, I have some people in my personal life that are going through the aftermath of engaging in this kind of behavior recently. And I was talking with one of them about it, and what did I say? She said something to the effect that, if she had just been, like, like a healthy, well-rounded individual, that this would have went a lot better. And I was like, I kind of stopped the conversation right there. I was like, healthy, well-rounded individuals don't get involved in these situations. Like, you know what I mean? Healthy people who are secure and not carrying around a lot of trauma, not reliving their trauma in their relationships, people who have self-esteem and self-worth and have healthy boundaries, don't get into these kind of dynamics. I was like, no, if you were healthy, the idea of this would have been totally sickening to you. Like, healthy people don't have a problem with commitment or monogamy. That's not when they really like someone. And I think the issue too is just a lot of people settle. So for people who settle and get into relationships with someone that's, like, okay, but not really what they want, this kind of thing is attractive because, again, your options are open. But what kind of way is that to live, and what kind of way is that to treat people? It doesn't. Well, Sabrina, I would say that I don't. Yes, I have noticed that. Yes, I have noticed that. Like, it's not just that. I just think there is a general, it's not just about hygiene specifically. I think there's a general, I don't know, it seems to be popular amongst kind of nerdy people who, again, it's not like people who are successful and attractive and, I don't want to say these people, because these people may have success in certain areas, but people who are, like, well-rounded individuals with a lot going for them, don't seem to get involved in this. You know, it does seem to be kind of people who are a bit less less developed, less attractive. I don't know. I mean, man, I don't know what else to say. And this is obviously not everyone, because again, I've known people who've gotten into it and they were told. I think the reality though is with the people I've known, they just weren't honest with themselves about their relationships and where they were really at. Agent 99 thinks it's better to be in, I guess, a polyamorous situation than to die a virgin. I honestly don't think there's anything wrong with dying a virgin. I don't think there's anything wrong with virginity, honestly. I don't know why people like virginity is honestly in this culture, virginity is an achievement. If you like make it through like to adulthood and have retained your virginity, it's kind of rare. And honestly, I admire people who don't fall victim to this culture's push to be sexual before you have like an actual commitment with someone. I honestly think it's better. I would rather be, I would rather be a virgin than go through these kind of situations. Like I'd rather, die an old maid, never been touched than to contemplate living in this kind of hell, because that's what it is. It's hell. And Sabrina has an important comment here, which is, I agree. Honestly, I think when it comes to that, and when it comes to these kind of dynamics with men and women, men generally know pretty early on what category of woman you are to them, whether they want you for a committed relationship or not. So for it to linger on that long past a certain point, I understand why like younger people do it, but if you're a woman past the age of 25, don't like, you should be dating with an idea to marry, and you should not be wasting your time on someone who's just stringing you along as a placeholder. And that's what it is. So, I mean, I agree with you about that. I think generally these are conversations to have in the dating stages, like to talk about what you're looking for and to make it clear as a woman that you want to be in a committed marriage. And honestly, like I think marriage is best. Like I don't think you should be like, honestly, you should not be dating anyone that you wouldn't want that with. But anyway, hi Agrita, I haven't seen you in a while. How you doing? I'm okay. I'm holding on here. It's a rough winter, but I'm still going. Yeah, it's very prevalent amongst the lesbian community, unfortunately. Yes, that's the other thing too. Erasing friendship. That's a big point, you know. Yeah, well, I'm glad that you got out of that. I know it's kind of hard to avoid, but this is important what you said about friendships here specifically. Friendships are really important in our lives, and when you take somebody on as a friend, that is, a type of commitment. I think it's you definitely a friend is somebody to whom a great deal is owed, and to whom, a lot of love and care is given. And yeah, that kind of tendency to size up people that you meet and consider them as like a potential sexual partner can really kill the development of a strong friendship. I definitely have seen that happen. And, for me personally, like for me personally, like there have been times, where friendships can get in those awkward kind of stages, or you kind of have those wonderings. But to me, honestly, like having a friendship is important, and a lot of this kind of behavior can really be damaging to a friendship, because like you may be attracted to someone physically, you may, really like them and think they're great, but honestly, is this person someone that you should be considering for a romantic partner? And I don't think a lot of the times they are. You really have to search yourself and think about, like, is this person going to be compatible with me long term? And if not, you have to really kind of exercise that discretion, discernment, and do the right thing, which is to keep those boundaries in place in the friendship. Because if not, what's going to happen is you're going to end up, with a broken relationship when you could have had a friendship that would last you, through life. And that's the thing. It does kind of break apart communities as well. You can't have a very strong knit community where everyone is kind of open in this way, because it's going to create animosity, jealousy, rivalry, and it's going to erode friendships, because oftentimes, once you cross a certain boundary, of bringing the sexual dynamic into a friendship, it is no longer a friendship. And at that point, then you really run the risk of alienating and hurting your friends. So this is not the way that people treat their friends. This isn't the way people should treat their friends anyway. It sometimes is the way people treat their friends, because they have they're allowing their lustful desires to run rampant and dictate. Excuse me. Man, I am in a good deal of pain today. I have to say, it's been very hard today with everything. So these movements, I had to adjust my body, and it's just brutal. But back to what I was saying, it's corrosive. It's really corrosive to bring. Again, I think the sexual dynamic too, we don't talk about it. Sexual energy is very powerful. It's very powerful. And when it is let about too freely, it does lose its power in many regards. And then it becomes this kind of corrosive force. So what could have been this creative, dynamic thing that was shared between two people, in a heightened state, becomes kind of ordinary. And that's unfortunate. It's unfortunate when something so nice and so, fulfilling and so gratifying, to us is something so personal, and also something that has the power to like be so connective between two people. It's really unfortunate when it loses its power and becomes ordinary, isn't it? Because like it then you can't really develop those sort of strong bonds as well. Like the more you behave like that, the harder it is for you, especially as a woman, to bond. I mean, and you have this kind of mentality of then starting to compare, who's a better lover, this isn't the way this energy is supposed to work. You're supposed to find someone who is very meaningful to you. And once that unfolds and you cross that boundary and barrier, it's supposed to be something that connects you both, that is special to you both. And it's just so unfortunate to hear these like stories of how that thing that was supposed to connect people like ended up kind of just getting put out everywhere. We do have to be kind of careful about it. And we're facing some serious spiritual battles in this culture, I tell you, and you have to be like really aware of that. This is something that is supposed to be a sacred mystery, It is supposed to be something that is this kind of elevated experience, and we've cheapened it so much, and it's sad. I keep thinking about the new woman who would sleep with a man already in a long-term relationship under the poly label. Does she have a fear of potential? Does she feel comfort objectified? One of my hairs in my mouth, excuse me. I'm having a rough time doing this video. I'm like, ooh, my bones are hurting. I got one of my hairs in my mouth. Goodness gracious me. Okay. I don't know what to think about that. Like, to me, it's just so like, I can't like, maybe it's just my age at this point. Maybe it's just my temperament, but the idea of just sleeping with someone like, and they're in a relationship already, like, why would I bother? What would, I don't understand it. Like, to me, it's just, does she have a fear of potential? Like, I don't know what is going through a woman's mind who makes those kind of choices. Like, I can't, like, that's a bad choice. You know what I mean? Those are poor choices. If he is already in a relationship, why are you getting involved? Like, what is your purpose there? And like, what are you getting out of it? Like, what are you, like, you should be getting something out of it. Like, if you're something more than just your rocks off, you know what I mean? Is it really? Anyway. Yeah. And I don't know. I've kissed a friend like on the top of the head maybe or something, I've had friends do that to me as well. But that's as far as it's going to go, hugs, maybe a kiss like that. If somebody's like also European, I might, if they greet me with a kiss on the cheek, I would return that back or something if that's their culture kind of standard. But Yeah, I'm uncomfortable with that kind of behavior. It's very, yeah, it's crossing some serious lines. A connection of biblical proportions, and she immediately blocked me. Yeah, I know. That's the thing too. Like, you don't want something that's. That's what I just feel. It's like just settling for what you can get. I don't know though. I haven't had many conversations with people on apps. I assume that, I'm thinking back though, because I did have, I can't even remember the name of the website now. Years ago, I was on a dating website and I went on a few dates from that. And or not just dates, like I was on there looking for friends as well. So I did meet some people who were kind of just looking for friends in their area, which was, they were weirdos too, I have to say. I mean, like, everybody I met was weird, honestly. So like, that kind of, to me, it just kind of, I was like, yeah, this is not how I want to do it. And yeah, so I haven't ever really, after those experiences, I kind of was just like, is it okay, Cupid? I think maybe, I'm not sure. But anyway, I could not do it. But I understand, like, people are kind of flaky on those things anyway. Like, people don't want to hear that. A lot of people are on there just looking for a hookup. That's what I've seen. Like, I had a friend I was hanging out with a couple of years ago. She was on her phone, and I was like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And she was like, she's like, "I'm on Tinder. It's a hookup app." And I looked at her and I was like, I thought it was a dating app, because I'm a bitch. Oh God, I'm great. Yeah, she was. I guess she was looking for a hookup on there. This friend of mine. I don't know what to do with her sometimes, but anyway, you know. And I said very clearly, okay, I thought it was for dating, but all right, I guess. So I think just after hearing that, I kind of got the impression of, I'm like, okay, a lot of people are just using this for encounters, which is so gross. Like, really, you are using an app on your phone to find a random stranger to be sexual with. It seems very strange to me. It seems like very backward behavior to me. It does not seem like the kind of thing we should be doing. As a woman, you should not do that either. You should protect yourself. Like, you shouldn't be looking, like, you should not be letting yourself even around random strangers. Like, it's concerning, like, the lack of regard. And I hear these stories that go viral from time to time. I heard this story recently about a young woman who met a guy on an app, went on a date, took him back to her home, had relations with him, and he stole her shoes and gave them to his girlfriend. Now, she ended up eventually recovering the shoes because there were all these, like, internet sleuths. Like, she put her big L here on the internet, on TikTok, and everybody, like, all the TikTok detectives, found the guy, found his girlfriend, told her that the shoes, that she had gotten from him. They were some designer shoes. They're those horrible shoes that have the toe that look like a cow toe. I don't remember what they're called. They're like some designer, but they're hideous. So this woman's hideous shoes were taken and given to another woman. And then I saw another one as well of this woman who met a guy on Instagram who lived in another town. He flew out to meet her, came straight to her place, hung out with her, at her home. And I'm like, you have never met this man before. You don't know anybody who knows him. And this guy was a total, she posted pictures of him. The guy had tattoos on his face. He had veneers. He looked like a criminal. Okay, I don't know what else to say to you. He looked messed up. He looked like somebody not to trust. But she's like, there were no red flags. He was super sweet. Anyway, so she didn't left out the part where he, he was sleeping in her house. So I assume something went on, if you know what I mean. But anyway, she woke up in the morning. He was gone. She was blocked everywhere. And he had stolen her watch and some other stuff from her house. And, you just think of it and you're just like, man, you're really lucky that it was your shoes, that it was your watch and not your life that was taken. To me, it's just incredible the number of women now, I don't know who's raising them to have so little regard for their own safety that they would invite a strange man who they don't know, who nobody they know knows, into their home, into their body. We're in a crisis. Has no one told these women that they're vulnerable and that they need to protect themselves? It's just strange to me. Thank you for the well wishes. I know I need to do a video about living with pain, I think, sometime. I don't like to talk about it much. I generally just ignore it and go about my business. But it is the mindset you have to deal with it. There really is a mindset you just have to develop when you have chronic pain issues. It just, you end up it does something to your mind where you just end up almost becoming, I don't want to say numb to it, because obviously if I move, I'm in pain, I feel it, but I don't let it get me down. I don't let it deter me from living my life. I don't let it get to me. I agree. Friendship is important. Friendships are important. They are important. They are valuable, and they are not to be discounted. And people don't really understand that a friendship is a relationship. We talk about relationships. If you don't have successful friendships in your life, if you're not able to maintain friendships, that's a red flag. That's something that you need to work on. If you know somebody, if you're talking to somebody, if you're interested in somebody and they don't have friendships, that's concerning. Thank you. Yes, this scarf is nice. Thank you. I had it I've just been wearing it all day. It's a lovely scarf. I kind of have it tucked in on itself, and I had my hair tucked in it a little bit. So thank you. Yep, Gigi, he stole her shoes. I mean, how humiliating, how humiliating that you have a one-night stand and the guy takes your shoes. I know this isn't related to polyamory, but I mean, I guess it was, because he sounds polyamorous. I mean, he's on a dating app hooking up with random women, and he has a girlfriend. He stole her. It's kind of sweet when you think about it that he stole this woman's shoes and gave them to his girlfriend. You know, we know who his primary is, right? I agree. You know, a lot of it comes down to our fathers and how our fathers raise us and what our fathers instill in us. You know, a lot of women aren't protected by their fathers. A lot of women don't even have fathers. Like, let's be real here. How many people do you know were raised by single mothers? Or, you know, their relationship, their father wasn't in the house, their father wasn't present, or their father was, you know, a henpecked shell of a man, or their father was like a very feminine man who really didn't have any sort of, he didn't have that, you know, protective mindset, even in regards to his own kids. I mean, you do see it though, too. Like, and I've seen it in situations, like I've had tendencies to be more forgiving of, you know, men being disrespectful to me than I necessarily should have. And I realized this, you know, when I had mentioned recently to an offhand comment that a man had made to me a while back to another man, and that man got kind of upset about it. And he was like, "Are you serious? He said that to you?" Like, and I kind of stopped and thought. I was like, "Oh man, like this guy here, who, I mean, he has cause to be protective of me in a certain regard, yes." But I just was kind of like, he was like, I was like, you know, I've forgiven this guy for making that statement to me. And he was like, you know, yeah, you have a lot of grace, but, you know, I have a daughter and I would not want a man speaking to her that way. And I was kind of like stopped. I was like, yeah, you're right. I was exercising grace in forgiving this guy for making an offhand comment to me. But, you know, you're also right that, you know, he really shouldn't have. Like, it was completely inappropriate. And yeah, just kind of seeing that streak. I think if girls grow up with that, they tend to have a much higher value on themselves. You know, that's really it. If they're not properly protected growing up, if they don't have that masculine figure in their life that is showing them how they deserve to be treated, then they're going to be a lot more susceptible to accepting crap. And that's, again, where this polyamory thing comes in. It's, people ask, like, again, why is this so prevalent amongst younger generations? A lot of the younger generations come from broken homes. They come from broken homes. They come from single parent homes. They have no idea what it looks like in their upbringing to see a stable partnership. Yeah, I know, Agrudas. Like, where is your common sense? Like, and this guy just looked like a criminal. Like, I don't know what else to say. He had tattoos on his face. Okay, I'm gonna say something here. Unless somebody is a tattoo artist, why do they have tattoos on their face? Even if they are a tattoo artist, like, it's still kind of like, normal people don't do that. Okay, I know it's becoming more popular, but and I like tattoos. I actually really like tattoos. I love tattoo art. I love looking at people's tattoos. I think it's just I think tattoos can be an incredible thing, but I do have some reservations when I see someone with face tattoos. And she's talking about how this guy is like so sweet and everything. And I'm like, you don't really know him. He's been sweet to you in, DMs. Like, what if a guy is like not sweet in DMs? Like, that's kind of suspect, isn't it? Like, how hard is it to be nice in DMs? How hard is it? Like, there's nothing to that. But I would be thinking, like, okay, what does this guy do for a living? Because there's not many jobs going that you can look like that in. And yeah, Sabrina says it. Not gainfully employed. Exactly. And I don't even mean where am I trying to go with this? Obviously somebody could, be work for themselves. Again, I've seen like it has become more popular amongst some tattoo artists to have, be completely covered in tattoos and then go so far as to tattooing the face and stuff. But to me, it just screams like poor judgment, especially if you're young. If you're old, get your face tattooed if you want. If you're like retired, why not? But like if you're in your 20s and you have it going on, it's suspect. It's like, how you're living now in your early 20s is not going to be how you're going to want to live later on in life. And maybe you have something successful going now for you, supposedly. That would be a no for me. That would be a no for me. So to me, it's just like, she's like, no red flags. I'm like, really? Really? Those weren't a big red flag to you? It's just so funny when people say there were no red flags and you just take a glance and there's so many red flags, like flag after flag after flag. It's like a freaking race or something. There's so many flags. They're like, I've looked those shoes up. They're like, I don't know if they're 1,000. I think they were like $800 or $900 though. Pretty close. Just wait until his BF finds out. Oh my goodness. What did you steal from me? I'm going to have to go hook up with a guy. It's very, imagine being the girlfriend too. And like your man's gifts you these shoes you've always wanted, these hideous shoes that you wanted because you have no taste. And then you find out that he stole them from some girl he hooked up with. Ugh, what a bad feeling. Yeah, Agruda is a tattoo artist and would never tattoo her own face. Yeah, I know. That's the thing. Like, it's poor judgment on the part of the person and then also the artist as well. I would be like, if I were in that realm, I would be very hesitant to do certain things, and I think that's good. As an artist, you need to have boundaries about what you're going to do, for people, because there's so much potential for regret. Like, how many of us regret tattoos we have that aren't on our face? And I have to say, like, I don't really regret any of my tattoos, but I do have some tattoos that I want to like I have a tattoo that I want to get covered up. I have a tattoo I want to get covered up, and then I have a tattoo that I would like some more work done on. So I'll say that I'm not really regretful about the tattoos, but I'm kind of like in my modern life and in my evolution as a person, I'm kind of feeling like I would like these things covered up. And then I have another tattoo that I may feel that way about in the future. Currently, I don't. But I can see I could see the potential for one day kind of looking at it and being like, maybe I need to get rid of that. So I'm just saying, like, if you have regrets about tattoos in places that aren't your face, how much more is the potential here? And yeah, I know. That's the thing. Like, you could always draw on your face. Like, you can do all kinds of intricate things on your face with makeup. Why would you put a tattoo on it? It just seems strange to me. I mean, there are certain tattoos that are maybe like tribal. I've seen that people have done, and those are related to their culture, their background, their heritage. And those tattoos, though, I have to say about those tattoos always look a lot better than these like tattoos that like this guy had. He had like a bunch of random stuff on his face, just like, and you see these kind of modern, I guess they're rappers. I wouldn't call what they do rap, but you know what I mean? Like, it seems to be prevalent that a lot of them have, face tattoos, just a bunch of junk on their face. It looks stupid, though. I find it really, again, another thing I'm judgmental about in this world. Anyway, this is supposed to be about polyamory. So I titled this, "There is no love in polyamory." Why is that? Because polyamory, it has nothing to do with the kind of self-denial and the kind of sacrifice and goodwill that is required to love another person. If you genuinely care about another person, if you genuinely love another person, you are going to be willing to deny yourself. You're going to be willing to sacrifice for them. And it's not going to feel like you're not going to be keeping tally or score about it, or feel like entitled about that, or feel like you're owed something. Because, to genuinely love someone is to give without being worried about getting back. And again, I'm not saying that in your personal relationships, you should definitely ensure that you are getting something back from them. There are, again, these are ideals, and we live in the world. But I have to say, these kind of dynamics are not the ones that foster real love between people, because the dynamics actually promote self-seeking and selfishness. And if that is what is promoted, then the higher self that loves another really can't come out and express itself fully. So, yeah, and then again, it's people prioritizing their lusts, the lust of their flesh over the real thing of love, which is ultimately willing another person's good. I mean, you have to really sit and ask yourself these questions like, if I really love this person that I'm in a relationship with, how can I love them if I subject them to the potential for hurt, the potential for envy, jealousy, bitterness, feelings of inadequacy? If I really love them, would I be giving the energy I give them to someone else as if they weren't special? And again, I think the other thing that we don't really take into consideration as human beings is the fact that we only have so much we can give every day. You know what I mean? Like, we each only have so much energy we can give. We each only have so much love we can give to someone else or to others, really. And when we are multiplying that, when we are multiplying the number of people that are requiring that kind of intimacy, that kind of connection from us, we're going to come up short. We're just never going to really be giving anyone really the kind of love and attention they deserve. Everybody's only going to just get a part of you. And that's not, it may be gratifying to you in a narcissistic way, but is it real love? I don't see it at all. Like, again, analyzing these things for years, watching the dynamics, watching people's relationships implode from taking on these beliefs, watching people jump from, one primary to a new one, watching people, wear themselves down and out, just gratifying their lustful urges and, winding up pregnant without a partner as well. Because again, that's the thing, like with women engaging in these situations, you can end up pregnant by a man who really isn't invested in you or cares about you. And doesn't that sound like a really horrible place to be? And if you are that kind of woman that just accepts, who like opens yourself up and gives the world and expects nothing in return, like, this is a great place for you to land and get your precious life energy sucked out of you, honestly. As I've heard situations like this of women, who are ethically non-monogamous, and then they end up pregnant, and then they end up having a baby out of wedlock, and the dad is like, he's not invested in her. He's not going to stick around and be there for her. He wasn't before if he wasn't before she got pregnant. So like, why would he be afterward? And then, this child has to grow up in this situation where mom is, overburdened, overtaxed. The guy may, maybe you could put him on child support if you're like lucky, and he, isn't gonna, you have to be careful about that too, because like, I've seen men skip the state. Like I know of a woman whose husband, he, left, and he fled to another state, and he works under the table so he doesn't have to pay child support for the 3 kids that he had with his wife. All right. So they were married. So if that can happen in that sort of situation, like, why would you just willingly put yourself in a situation with someone who is just not invested in you at all? Like, it just seems like there's no guarantees in life. You could do things the right way and still end up, going through some pretty bad situations. But if you choose to just go into the bad situations, go into these fallen kind of states and just subsist and exist there, living your life that way, you're guaranteed to have bad experiences. You're guaranteed to have them. So yeah, I just think about these women I've known who, well, I know of one woman, I should say, that got pregnant and is practicing the ethically non-monogamous lifestyle and is going to have a baby. And it's a horrible situation. Like, I just think about that too. Like, so this is your chosen lifestyle, and then you're going to bring kids into it. You're going to bring kids into your brokenness. Like, that's the other thing too. Like, it's one thing to live brokenly yourself, but to like bring children into your broken world and to impose your brokenness on them, it's hard. It's really hard to watch. Yes. Again, I think it should be a mutual thing, right? We should, in a relationship, ideally, there should be mutual sacrifice, right? There should be mutual giving, I should say as well. Sacrifice is kind of a strong word. It comes up in certain times, I think, but at the very least, there should be mutual giving. But yeah. That woman is just disgusting. I don't even know what to say to that. That's such an eye roll. Like, is that supposed to impress everybody? That's the thing. That's just bragging. That's somebody bragging. You know what I mean? That person's bragging. They're humble bragging. Like, wow, I'm a joke. I only have 9 girlfriends. Like, are we supposed to be impressed? Because we're not. Yeah, I don't even know. Like, even managing 9, imagine having a dinner party with 9 people, the amount of effort that takes, let alone managing 9 romantic and probably sexual relationships. That's more, 9 is more than the days of the week. That's more people than the days of the week. You can't even give people 1 day a week with that. Now I'm thinking about like this, the Sister Wives show just popped into my mind, right? He had 4 wives. Dude had 4 wives. And, he would rotate day after day, supposedly. It wasn't really happening. But regardless, he would spend time with one and then he'd go to another, then he'd go to another, then he'd go to another house. And so I just think like, but that's polygamy. Polygamy is, I think it falls under the polyamory spectrum, but it's a bit different because there's, I don't know there's marriage involved, and it's usually related to some sort of religious kind of community background. Belief. And in the USA, I mean, polygamy is illegal, or not in all states, but it's a practice that's generally only practiced by certain cult members. It's not widely accepted. And there's many reasons for this because it's ghetto. I mean, that's the other thing too. Like, polygamy is ghetto, and so is polyamory. Like, at the end of the day, it ends up being people like really desperate, subsisting together, and people have these ideas like, oh, if there's multiple adults, there's going to be multiple, breadwinners and that kind of thing. And that sounds nice, I guess, but it doesn't really work that way when you have like the amount of kids that end up getting produced by these arrangements. I mean, that family alone has something like 18 kids, and I think three adopted as well. So for one father, I mean, again, and the whole. Now I'm thinking of, again, Sister Wives. He used to say at the beginning of the show, like back in the day, like love should be multiplied, not divided. But when you were working with those kind of numbers, it is being divided. Like you have to divide your time, your attention, your energy. Like that's the other thing about it too. Like imagine you're an adult, you're not in a polygamous circumstance, but let's say you're in an open marriage, right? And you have kids, but you and your spouse are allowed to seek out relationships outside of that. I'm like wondering, in that dynamic, how much are you like taking from your family and your kids? Like really? I think about that too when I think about somebody brought up like a woman choosing to sleep with a man that's in a relationship, or I think about it too with like a woman who chooses to get into like a sexual relationship with a married man or something. Like you have to like really think about all the people that you're impacting by your behavior. Because if any of these people have kids, that's a lot. That's a lot of responsibility to take on. And, or if you produce kids with your behavior, like, again, you're putting kids into a situation that's chaotic and unstable, exposing them to a lot of adults that really aren't invested in them. It isn't right. It just isn't right. I totally cringed with that ridiculous post. Yeah, I mean, it is cringe. It's like, I don't like when people, I don't know what that woman was thinking exactly, but it just sounds like she thinks that she has something to brag about. And in reality, she just comes across as very stupid, because that's not a flex. Honestly, how is that a flex? It sounds miserable, quite frankly. I mean, it sounds miserable. I've been in relationships before, okay? I know what they're like. Nine at a time sounds like hell. Yeah. It's hard enough making one person happy. Like, can you imagine trying to make 9 people happy? Is it just about like stacking, see how many numbers you can get before like it all implodes? Because it's going to. There's no way to keep all those women happy. And if they only want like, and if they are comfortable with it, you also have to search yourself and question like, why don't they really want me? Like, why don't they want me all to themselves? If someone actually loves you, they're going to want you all to themselves. They're not going to be comfortable with sharing you. Like, they're not. And if somebody is comfortable with sharing you, that's an indication that they don't really care, honestly. Like that they've stopped caring. Maybe they cared in the past and now they don't. Polygamy has to be responsible for them at least. Yeah, he does technically, but again, a lot of those situations end up terrible. Like if you investigate like what polygamy is actually like, even in like, again, they used to do these ridiculous comparisons because a lot of the show was about propagandizing, they're from the AUB, and Christine, who is one of the wives, she was part of this political group. I forget the name of it, but what is it? Principal Voices. So they have this idea in their faith of the principle, which is, the idea of that plural marriage, as they call it, or, a man having multiple wives is a higher calling. And that by engaging in that lifestyle, they will gain favor in heaven. That's basically the idea. So a lot of these Mormon polygamous cults that exist around the US, and there are a number, have really terrible rates of child abuse, not just from like parent to child, although that can be a problem because the parents are, overtaxed, and the women often they're constantly pregnant, just from all of their fertile years, they're pregnant again and again and again. It's not uncommon for the survivors or people that leave these cults to talk about, oh yeah, my mom had 10 kids. So, and I know that used to be more common back in the day, but in our modern era, that's really rare. So, but yeah, you do investigation, like child abuse is rampant, fraud, welfare fraud is rampant. A lot of these women in these communities, because they're not legally married to their husband, they apply for food stamps, they get government benefits, which they need because they have a whole mess of kids to feed, and their husband can only make so much money. Like, it's really sad. And a lot of the times kids, if they're not the primary wife, like the first wife, the legal wife, the kids don't have, and the wives don't have health care. Like, it's dire, and they will often deny. Some of them have really strong beliefs about, even seeking medical care. So, you hear a lot of stories about kids dying from preventable diseases or treatable things because, anyway, polygamy is a very terrible thing. It has very negative ramifications in our society now. It's not the way things are meant to be. It really isn't. It has developed at certain periods of time, like with the Mormons in the US. There was a reason why they embraced polygamy, and it had a lot to do with the small number of men to women. And again, like in the Bible, although the Mormons have their own, they have their own beliefs as well, but there is provision made to like marry widows or marry women who might need that kind of protection in a patriarchal society. Like, you could take on a woman as, a means of being, the idea is that you're meant to take care of her and look after her. It's not this like, it's not supposed to be this exciting, like, ooh, I get to have multiple women type of thing. Yes. I don't know. Like, if they all come together, right? If they all come together, then maybe it adds up to a real job. Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing too. It's like the most undesirable people. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with doing these things. Like, there is something wrong with practicing polygamy or polyamory. I should say, but nothing wrong with having an Etsy shop or doing freelance work or that kind of thing. But yeah, they don't really, these are not always the most responsible adults. And again, that's a completely unattractive trait as well. And it makes you wonder, like, they find one another. Again, they're just feeding off of each other, though. Like, these are all people who are in a state of arrested development. So maybe they're not really ready for monogamy. But if you're not ready for monogamy, you're not ready for sexual behavior. Like, really, again, you're not ready to be having sex. If you're not ready for that, you're not ready to be having sex. Yeah, obviously. I mean, if you have that kind of, if you're bragging about the number of people you have as if it's some sort of like trophy, yeah, it's just like having a trophy. It's just like a notch in the belt. It's like something that you feel gives you an edge or some bravado, when in reality, anybody who has any emotional intelligence can just see through that. It's like, what are you trying to prove? All you're proving to me is that you are not good. Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's supposed to be the idea, like, of polygamy. It's supposed to be, this happens because you're living in a patriarchal society, and widows and orphans are at risk. And so if you have the financial potential, like you have, that you should take on, uh, someone else's, but anyway. Yeah, modernity has perverted everything. But we say that, but like, there's nothing new under the sun. Humanity has always been in a fallen state. Like, I want to say that this is just how it's manifesting in our culture now. But these things aren't new. People have always engaged in these kind of behaviors. People have always fallen short of the ideal. Selfishness and that kind of thing they've been with us since the dawn of humanity, and they're going to be something that we struggle with. We have to learn how to deny ourselves. We have to learn how to really love one another and learn how to deny ourselves, deny what we think we want in favor of what is the greater good. Because again, you have to think about that with this dynamic, like polyamory. There is no greater good in this situation. This does not create a greater good for all of us. It doesn't create a more just or free society. All it does is create more misery, chaos, confusion, and pain. And who is the architect of that? You really have to really get down to it. Like, where does this stuff come from? Who does it serve? What does it serve? And this kind of dynamic, this kind of lifestyle is just always going to lead to, again, less love in the world. Hi, sweetheart. Hi, sweetheart. My cat has jumped on my lap here. See his tail. Unfortunately, the camera is not low enough to capture him. But maybe, we'll get him in another stream. Hi, sweetheart. Yes. You don't like polyamory, do you? You find it repugnant, don't you? Yeah, you don't like it. He's like, one human for me is enough. Yeah, one kitty is enough for me too. One kitty is enough. We're special to each other. Yeah. Well, anyway, yeah, I'm about to head out too. Yes, and have a good evening. Yeah, thank you for participating in the chat. It was a good subject. It was a good subject, and it's unfortunate how yeah you getting some love. People love you. You're famous. It's a lot of us have different experiences with this. And to me, like, I've talked about it, personally, just how it's come up in my life. I've never consented to be in any sort of open relationship as it is, but definitely like have been exposed to these ideas a long time. They fly around radical circles a lot of the time. So, remember going to like anarchist book fairs, there's always some sort of workshop on ethical non-monogamy that, is always flooded with a ton of people and is usually being led by somebody who's completely broken and narcissistic and again just just speaking my mind here about what I've seen. But again, it's too popular. It really is too popular, especially for how destructive it really is and how the people who engage in it usually end up feeling. And a lot of the times people are so attached. The thing is, people get these ideas, and I'm not immune to having an idea take over me and like run my life. I'm definitely not immune to that. It's happened to me, but because I have had that happen to me, I see it happen to other people. They hear these thoughts, they hear these ideas, and they sound really nice. It sounds really nice on the surface, the way people describe this, the way people talk about it, these concepts of, ethical non-monogamy and open relationships and just the potential of them. And they make it sound so flowery and so beneficial and so open-minded and so like radical and like what you should be doing. People, that's the other thing too, people are militant about it as well. There are people who are very militant about it, and the people who are militant about it are like very judgmental and they shame people for wanting to engage in monogamy. They think that they are superior to people who engage in monogamy. Like they do, they really do. They think they've found a higher level of existence. They think they're privy to some sort of secret information that other people don't have. And because of this, they're on some sort of higher level. Like this is the way they act. And so when they hear that people, don't want to live that way, or they also often attack like monogamy as an institution. They'll say that humans are not meant to be monogamous, that we're, it's not natural to us, but that is a lie. We know it's natural to us because when you fall in love with someone, anybody who's ever fallen in love knows that it's a lie. When you're in love, there's only one person that you want. You don't want anyone else. That's what it is. And so this is the thing, like, to me, and how it's so patently obvious that it's a fraudulent ethic, it's a fraudulent belief system, is that it flies in the face of human experience and our history as humanity. Like, we organize ourselves into families, whether people like it or not. And those families are generally based on, you know, a monogamous relationship between a man and a woman. And I know that makes people uncomfortable for some reason. But again, that's their problem. It's not anybody else's problem. Oh, hello, Vagare Kinikos. Has a few comments here. That is a good point. That is a good point. The attractive person, the more attractive person. I have friends in them, and it's always turned into the girlfriend having a bunch of guys to hook up while the boyfriend hubby struggles to attract any women. It's another form of cuckolding. Good Lord. I can't even imagine the kind of man who would consent to that. Like, to me, again, a man who loves you is supposed to want to protect you, you know? He's supposed to be protective of you. And so that to me, like, you know, that to me would indicate some kind of possessiveness of me. Like, wouldn't it? Like, wouldn't you think? You know, like, you would think in that situation, again, if somebody is comfortable with you sleeping with anybody else, they don't care about you. I don't know how a man, like, why would a man even consent to that? Like, if you really like this woman, if you really care about this woman, why would you ever consent to letting someone else, like, have at it? You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to use any vulgar language here, but it's not loving. It isn't loving. It's so not loving. And, like, that to me is embarrassing for a man as well. Like, again, yeah, you mentioned the cuckolding of it. I've heard of the reverse situation too. I've heard of many situations where, like, a woman will agree to, you know, the man having a girlfriend as long as it's a woman, like, or them having a girlfriend together, like a throuple situation. I've heard of so many situations where, like, a woman will consent to have a menage a trois with her husband or boyfriend and bring in another woman, and, like, the guy and the woman, the new girlfriend, are doing it, and the woman, the you know, the first woman, the wife or girlfriend who brings in this other woman, doesn't really have any relationship with that woman at all. It's like a farce. Their, you know, relationship. It's not a sexual relationship, or if it is, it's like only within certain bounds. You just, you know, you hear about these things and it's just like, good God, like, how can you even live like this? How can you even live like this? A lot of woke feminists advocate for polyamory because they get their cake and can eat it too. It benefits them most. I mean, yeah. Okay, baby, would you get off of mama for a second? He wants to lay on me. That's interesting because, like, you know, I was a feminist for a long time. So I kind of ran with, I don't want to say ran with different, I didn't run with like a woke feminist circle. It was more like radical feminist circles. And these kind of things were less popular, although they would come up from time to time. But a lot of women were, you know, especially if they were heterosexual at all, would like totally not be for that if they were, because, you know, they would just be I don't know. What am I trying to say? They just would see it as something that wouldn't be safe to engage in, I think, more than anything else. Like, it wouldn't be safe. So, yeah, that to me is disgusting. I mean, I don't deny it. Like, I did bring up a story earlier about this woman that I'd gone to a party at her house years and years ago, and like found out that she and her boyfriend were in an open relationship, and he was very clearly getting humiliated through it. And I don't know why he stayed. Honestly, like, why would you stay? That to me is kind of the question I ask, because it's like, how much are you going to let somebody humiliate you? You know, and I think too, as a man, like a lot of the times, women. This is for any men watching this chat right now. Listen to me. There are women out here who enjoy destroying men. If you are a weak man, they live to destroy you. They love it. It is their goal. So, I mean, men really need to be careful engaging in relationships with women, because if a woman smells weakness in you, a lot of women will go out of their way to destroy you. Like, they will. It's just, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. I haven't really fully fleshed it out exactly, but I've seen it. Like, they get a thrill and excitement out of destroying a weak man. So, like, you know, if you are a man, you need to, if you are having relationships with women, you really do need to have a sense of how to deal with women the right way. And you really need to not have women on a pedestal. And I think a lot of men are guilty of that. They put women on pedestals, they worship women, they think that women, you know, it's understandable to a certain degree, because men want approval from women. You know, they get a feeling, it's kind of primal, you know, it's comes from, you know, being nurtured by women as a child. So, you know, you kind of always are looking for that connection again. But like, I'm going to say this, you know, if you're a man and you don't have yourself together, you're weak in some way, you don't have a strong character, you don't have good boundaries, you know, you're afraid to lose her, you're putting yourself at risk for going through something like what Vigare here is describing. You know what I mean? Like this, here we go. I have a friend who was dating a girl, and she told him to accept her being poly or she would dump him. Like, let her go. Oh, you're going to dump me? You weren't going to be my girlfriend anyway. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if somebody's not even really going to be your girlfriend anyway, go ahead and leave. I mean, again, like, you got to be comfortable letting people go. You know, at some point in your life, you have to like become a man, you have to become a woman, and you have to like be totally fine. I know that you just have to have inner strength and rules and boundaries for yourself of what you'll accept and what you won't. And that's something totally unacceptable. You know, that kind of like, why would I ever accept you if we're in a relationship? You know, and it sounds like they're dating. Again, dating, people maybe take dating too seriously. I think dating should be taken seriously to one extent, you know, but you're really just dating people to find out who you're compatible with and who might be a good candidate for a long-term relationship. if you're dating somebody and that comes up, you know they're not the one. So that's the point where you're like, okay. But I think a lot of the times people get, they call somebody their girlfriend or boyfriend, and they like that kind of feeling that gives them. But, I think once you reach a certain age as an adult, you kind of have to have a more adult mindset and understand that those terms don't really mean anything. You're single until you're married. And yeah, a lot of people are out here putting these non-committed relationships on a pedestal, thinking they know someone. It's like, this person hasn't really earned the right to be a girlfriend or a boyfriend. Like, they're just somebody you're dating until you actually make a strong commitment to one another. Like, it doesn't really mean anything. Hello, Madam Singh. You are in Portland. I too am in Portland. Good old Portland. Yeah, it's very common here. I used to be very, I wouldn't call myself woke, but I was, left wing, and this kind of, the whole open relationship, polyamory, ethical non-monogamy is endemic in a lot of those circles. And it's a big, it's a big part of why those circles and those people never really get it together and achieve much. I will say that your sexual energy is your creative force, okay? You can't just be, again, putting it out all over the place. If you're putting it out all over the place, that's going to take energy from you that you could be putting to better use in your own life. And man, the more I think about this, like, it's like an onion, just more and more layers of bitter, painful things that make you want to cry. And this is a good point. I agree with you. They want to engage in the same behavior as a cheater without having the label. They want to be able to, in their minds, maintain, some sort of false morality and high opinion of themselves because they cheated in the right way. There's people who cheat and they're bad. People who have affairs and cheat are bad. They're right. Nobody wants to be that person. Nobody wants to be labeled a cheater. But, it's a way for people who aren't ethical to pretend to be ethical and look down on other people for their supposed non-ethics. You know what I mean? Like, how often, again, like, how often do we malign somebody who has an affair? We'll do that in this culture still, like, and even in the ethical non-monogamy, they'll hear about like a monogamous relationship, and they'll hear that someone had an affair in that relationship, and they'll just judge that person so harshly. But you're out here with 7 people in your roster that you are open to. You know what I mean? Like, whereas this person, maybe was having real problems in their main relationship and, sought comfort and solace in this affair with another, even the motivation behind it is like, on the surface, of course, affairs aren't good. Of course, cheating isn't good. Of course, adultery is not good. It's not a good thing. But even in those situations, a lot of the times, the feelings and emotions driving the people who engage in them is like better. Is, you know, in my mind, in my mind, like I understand it more. I understand it more than just being open to whatever. So I think that's part of it. They want the lifestyle of doing whatever they want and not having any consequences without, you know, having the label put on them. Because yeah, nobody wants the big red A on their chest. Nobody wants to go around like that. Nobody wants to be accused of being a cheater or get a bad reputation for themselves. But in the reality, like they're not behaving any more ethically. Just because you tell somebody that you're screwing them over and that you don't care about them and that it's okay because they don't care about you either does not make it ethical. You know, just because you agree that you're going to, you know, engage in certain behavior and you get the other person to consent to it doesn't make it ethical. Like, that's the thing about it. It's just like they think because consent is there. I get so tired of that. The consent thing is used with so many different cases of sexual immorality in our culture. You know, it's talked about in sex work, it's talked about in pornography, and it's just like, and it's talked about here, and it's just so tired. It's like, I'm not denying the consent. I'm denying whether or not the consent means that I, as a, you know, human being, have to morally approve of this lascivious and disgusting behavior. You know what I mean? Like, to me, it's just like, why would consent make something that isn't okay okay? I think, yeah, Vigari, this was I think you're responding to when I was talking about women destroying, yeah, men. I mean, it's, you know, it's out there. It's a real issue. If you're a man who can't stand up to a woman, if you're a man who can't, you know, tell a woman no, if you're a man who puts women on a pedestal and worships women like they're gods, a lot of men do, like, and they don't do it consciously. Like, you need to be self-aware, but you're at risk. And like, yeah, and again, I believe a lot of people who engage in this lifestyle are narcissistic to a certain degree. It's a good way for a narcissist to get lots of supply, you know, all that attention, all the different like entanglements. That's very exciting to somebody who is empty inside and needs, you know, other people's validation as a fix. I know it's so difficult. It's so difficult to, I mean, I don't want to say it's so difficult because like when a relationship is natural, it's just natural, you know, it just flows naturally. But, you know, keeping it going and maintaining like good quality time together and understanding of one another and like keeping that relationship a priority, you know, taking care of that other person, looking after them in the way that you do, like that's very time consuming. It's hard to do it for one person. It's so hard to do it for one person. It's so hard to give selflessly in love to one person. So why is it that people are attempting to supposedly do this with multiple people? It's so, yeah, it seems stressful and time consuming. And I'm like, do you work? You know, Sabrina brought it up earlier, like a lot of these people don't work. You know, their work is like not being gainfully employed. It's like having some sort of side hustle and calling it a career. And I'm not saying this about everyone because a lot of them do, but like aside from work, aside from having a full-time job or career, what are their hobbies? Like, you don't have any hobbies that are maybe, I don't know, more productive. To me, it seems like a very unproductive hobby, and you have to like think like this is how you spend your free time. You spend your free time in chaos. Sounds like hell to me. Sounds like hell, but people like being in hell. Yes. I think that's a big part of it too. People are addicted to the validation, the rush, the attention, the excitement, the glamour of seduction and of, being desired and wanted. And they let that become, an idol in their life. And they seek their identity through that. And not only that, but that's how they get a sense of feeling, it's how they get a sense of, they're dead inside. I mean, this is something too, maybe to talk about. Like, a lot of people are spiritually dead and they have no idea. Because, like, look at this. It's chaotic. It might be exciting at times. It might be a way to get a rush or a thrill, but like, only people who are spiritually dead need to go chasing after thrills. In the meantime, like, it's so, you're going through the motions, engaging in this like destructive behavior. It's like you're not even there. I mean, I hear people talking about it. I'm like, it's like you've decided to just exit the situation. Because I'm like, how can you actually be there? Like, how can you really actually be there? And they talk about it, like, they're very proud about it. I saw another video recently too of a young woman who she was explaining her roster, and so she calls herself a solo polyamorous or something like that. She is not in she doesn't have a primary relationship, I guess, is the thing. She doesn't have like a steady partner, but she does have, she said, she was explaining this in this video. And she drew out like little diagrams of her community, the basic like community she has around her. And she said in it that she has 22 people that she engages with in some kind of sexual fashion. Like, some of them are, men, some of them are women, some of them are, strictly there for, it sounded like she was also into some sort of sadomasochism as well. And I just like she's, she's an attractive young woman. She is an attractive young woman, and she's putting all this out there on the internet. I'm like, without any shame about it. She was very like matter of fact about it. And she's like, and yes, I maintain connections with all these people. And she's like, I get tested regularly, and it like, so confident about it, as if there wasn't anything wrong with what she was doing. And I watched it. I was just kind of like, she currently has 22. So you have to like think about that. If she's currently engaging with 22 people currently, like, what does her sexual history look like? Like, how many people has she actually been with? And, I'm like thinking 22 is a lot of people. It's a lot. Like when I hear that number, I'm kind of like, I don't know what to think of it. I really don't know what to think of it. I really don't know what to think of it. 22 people. Like, I would be shocked if somebody told me, like, somebody who was in their 90s, you know, who told me, like, if somebody in their 90s told me that throughout their entire life they'd had 22 different lovers, I would be shocked. You know what I mean? That's a lot of people for a lifetime, let alone right now. In the current date, you know, I have 22 people. Like, my God. Yeah. Oh, S.A. Brady said, bruh. Yeah, I know. Going on dates is so consuming in and of itself. And I think though that these people don't date. Okay. That's the thing about this. You know, if you go on dates, that's a much different experience, isn't it? Like, because you're like going out and doing an activity with someone in public, usually, and it's meant to be like a way to get to know someone. And it's, you know, it's nothing like what these people are engaging. These people don't date, these people rut. Okay. They rut like hogs. That's what it is. They don't date. I mean, I'm sure some of them go on dates sometimes, but like, how do you even manage dating 22 people? These aren't dates, a lot of them. Like, a lot of them, it just sounds like they hook up when they want to, which is very like sad and empty. Like, don't you want to take your time to get to know someone? Like, and how do you take your time to get to know 22 people? What a mess. Yeah, and I mean, again, like, yeah, so normal dating, right? You date different people to, you know, figure out if you try to find people that you're compatible with, you know, ideally this is somebody that you meet in the course of your life. You know, go out with them, you see if you know, like each other, if you want to continue seeing each other, you see if you're compatible and stuff. Like, there's supposed to be a progression. There's supposed to be, you know, a progression, a natural progression. You're not supposed to just things this is the thing again, like sex has become way too common. It's become way too common. It's become way too easy to get. And because it has, it's lost a lot of its power and meaning. And people just, because of that, I mean, it hasn't lost its power and meaning really, but in people's minds it has. And because of that, like, they're treating it very badly and then ending up, you know, more traumatized and more hurt because of it. Again, like I said it earlier in this video, normal, healthy, well-adjusted individuals are not attracted to these kind of lifestyles. They're just not, you know. People often blame these things not working on their trauma or their, you know, their unresolved, you know, issues that they, you know, they put the blame on that. And it's not that at all. Like, your unresolved childhood trauma is not the reason why this didn't work out. Okay. If you were healthy, you would never have been attracted to this in the first place. And that's that. If you were a well-adjusted individual, everything about this would have been telling you to run. That's true. I mean, again, people, they're spiritually dead, they're empty. And like when you are empty, when you're spiritually dead, when you're empty, there's nothing you can take. There's nothing you can fill your life with. There's no excitement. There's no sex. There's no drugs. There's no drink. There's no partying. There's no, achievements. There's no, collections, um, status. There's nothing that is going to fill you in the world. And the problem is people look out into the world to fulfill themselves. They look, at the world and think, well, what can I acquire? What can I experience? What can I have that's going to, fill this emptiness in me? And it's not there. And it's like with the gluttony is another thing about it. Like I've done some videos recently talking about gluttony, talking about how it impacts people. Excuse me. It's again people who are gluttonous in regard to food. When we talk about gluttony, it's often in regards to food. People who are gluttonous for food, they are feeding an emptiness in themselves. It is a perceived emptiness, that has people, trying to satiate or medicate, what is a spiritual issue. A lot of times people don't realize that the emptiness they feel, they're not even aware that they feel empty, a lot of times, because again, they're spiritually dead. If you, are aware of your emptiness, that becomes, once people kind of become aware of emptiness, that's when the shifts start to happen. Once you become aware of it, it kind of loses some of its power over you. But man, I don't know. What a talk tonight. I've went on for a couple of hours. I did say I was going to get off here a while ago, and then I had more people join and bringing up great talking points. I'm so glad, for the conversation we've had and the people who've shared here tonight. Like I appreciate the feedback and just talking about this with, all of you. It's been really helpful for me in terms of getting my ideas out about this. Again, I feel very strongly about it. I do. I'm very much against this kind of thing. And the reason is it's just immoral at the end of the day. They want to call it ethical, and it's not. Just because you call it ethical, just because you, consent, just because all the parties involved are consenting, doesn't make what is happening an ethical engagement. It really, really doesn't. So we need to get over that mindset and get back to reality. Like, what is the fruit being born here when people live this way? What comes out of it? Is there order or is there more chaos? I mean, we really just have to come down to that as people. Like, why do we make it more difficult for ourselves? If we live this way, will there be more order in the world or will there be more chaos? What is the answer? If the answer is more chaos, well then, let's choose accordingly. Oh, thank you. That's very nice of you to say. All right, y'all. Well, yes, have a good night, everybody. Have a good night. Take care of yourselves and stay out of trouble, because there's trouble out here in this world. Okay. Bye, y'all.